This is Thad Bell with the KC Soccer Journal. With me, I have Joseph Reina, and I'll get to you in a second, Joseph. First, I just want to introduce that we are trying to start a new episode in our pod family here, and I think we're going to call it Across the KC Pyramid. Does that sound good, Joseph?
I like it. Yeah.
I mean, I know we talked about this before, but it's a workshopping thing. We may change it, we may keep it. I don't know, but our focus will be lower level soccer, colleges, UPSL, NPSL, WPSL. Is there more? USL 3, no 2,
all the
1.
all the acronyms.
Yeah, all of those that is not getting enough attention. Not MLS, not NWSL. We also have a focused MASL or Comets pod on our family here, national team. So we just feel like all this other stuff and maybe amateur teams. We'll get as much of everything we can in as possible. Does that sound fair?
I love it.
All right. So I've known Joseph for about a year now ish, maybe less. But
I believe so. I think we got to actually meet each other when I came to town in,
yeah,
I want to say that would have been around February.
yeah, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
Has it been that short now, I guess? Wow.
Yeah.
Or that little of time.
Yeah.
But I met Joseph through indoor soccer, but he moved to town recently because he wanted to be someplace where there was a lot of soccer. Is that fair?
Yeah, completely accurate. Yeah.
So for people who do not know you yet, what do you want to tell them? What do you want other people to know about you publicly?
Ooh, nothing. No. I'm obsessed with soccer is the first and foremost thing. I have a background in journalism, studied sports media and communications and advertising and public relations at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. But I'm obsessed with the sport. I cover the Major Arena Soccer League as a writer, data analyst, that sort of thing. And being in Kansas City has just always been one of my favorite parts of being in this sport. Being able to see the current, being able to see sporting is such an incredible experience. Growing up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, we don't have, professional outdoor soccer, especially not at this level. And it's really cool for me. It still has not sunk in and fully resonated that we have professional teams here that I could just go to games kind of whenever I want. In fact, out of my apartment window, we can see CPKC Stadium, which is it's just nuts. It's so cool. So I love being here. I love being in Kansas City. It's been a lot of fun. I'm excited to cover the local soccer scene.
You like living right next to stadiums, right? Because you lived next to or on top or something of where the Milwaukee Wave indoor soccer team played.
Yeah, I was a block away from the Waves home arena, which was very nice for that commute. I would get to go to games and talk to coaches and stuff. And if I forgot something at home, it was 5 minutes there and back running across the Deer District in downtown Milwaukee. But here it's a little bit more of a hike down to Cable Dahmer Arena.
Yeah, a little bit. But you are on the streetcar line, so you can hit UMKC and...
Mm-hmm. A lot of soccer along the streetcar line.
Yeah. A lot of soccer in Kansas City, man. It's kind of a dream come true for me because I started when I moved here, there was only an indoor team and then it went away. And then it came back, but then MLS started and WSL started, and I'm now following, every level of soccer around the world. It seems like around the country for sure, at least a team, one or two teams in it. So it's kind of fun.
I always say the best of the growth of this sport in this country is seen in Kansas City. You really don't see the atmosphere, the environment, the fans, the passion anywhere else. It's so great to come here. I visited Dallas, New York, San Diego, a lot of really great places that you hear about good soccer scenes. Kansas City really does it blows me away every time, and I just love being down here. So, yeah,
it's cool. We're the upper teams, first, Sporting and the Current are not doing as well as they would hope, but it's still cool having those two in the same town in their own soccer specific stadiums, and everything else that comes with this town. Okay, so if there's anything else you want to tell people that are listening to this, but we can get to that, or we can start talking about soccer.
Yeah, let's talk about soccer.
All right. So I think for this week, we are going to focus primarily on college. And I mean, at least for the next few weeks, we'll probably focus primarily on college. And the two closest Division One soccer programs in the Kansas City area is UMKC men and women and the KU women. And two of those three are pretty good and expected to be really good. So how about we start off with UMKC men?
Let's do it.
For those who do not know, UMKC men went to the tournament the last two seasons. They made it to the Sweet 16 in 2024. Last year, they were good enough to host their home game and win against Lindenwood, but then they ended up going against Stanford. And preseason, they were ranked 25th in the nation coming into the 2026 college year. They've had one game so far that counted because for those who don't know, college will have some exhibition games that they don't usually give results from. I know that they played pretty well in at least one of them. But they had their first official game this last week on the 20th against SIUE. It was also a celebration game for the former coach of UMKC, Rick Benben, because he was alumni of SIUE. Gotta keep making sure I put all those letters in the right order. And so it was a good thing for them to celebrate, and the previous team that had done well, all that worked. But SIUE got kind of destroyed by UMKC 5-0. I don't know. Did you get to see any of the highlights or any of this stuff?
No, I didn't. Dude, I've been so impressed though, as I've been seeing, what this team is about and the growth that they've had over the last couple of years. Your interview with Coach Poor was phenomenal. And I'm excited to see as we get into the meat end of the season. We've got opponents like SMU and San Diego coming to town. These are really big opponents,
Right.
and it looks like those are going to be great games. I'm excited to see once they get away from these post or preseason sort of opponents that you're getting into the swing of things. You're making sure that we've got the right starting 11, that we've got the right subs coming on, those sorts of things. It's still ironing out the details, but some of these games are coming up pretty quick. September 4th at SMU. That's a really difficult game. That's going to be making sure that they are at the front of their mind.
Yeah.
Even though they have UNLV before that, but yeah, tell me what did you think of their performance against SIUE?
Uh, the Roos, they were clearly the better team throughout the game, and SIUE put in a pretty good performance, but at the first half, but UMKC just was the better team, and they're still missing probably their top scorer, who's was injured in preseason and has not returned to a lineup yet. And I know they're trying to be cautious because they got to have him at the end of the year if they make the tournament. But college soccer is a little different than like a pro sport where you make the playoffs and you can do damage, right? You may not make the NCAA tournament if you don't have enough quality games and opponents in the meantime for RPI rankings. And I'm sure because you're a stats guy and analytics, and we'll talk about RPI probably a lot over the series of this podcast in today and in the future. But Coach Poor is very cognizant, very focused on getting a high enough RPI, because if you win over a much lower ranked team, it can actually hurt you because you played a much lower team. You can lose to a higher RPI team and still look good on the RPI system. So he has a lot of very good teams on the roster or on the schedule so that they can, there's, like you said, SMU, they're 15th ranked. San Diego is 18th ranked in the standings, but a lot of other systems have them right at the top one or two teams in the country. So they have a very difficult schedule in the non-conference. The conference took a little bit of a hit this year because Denver left,
Mhm.
and they were always one of the better teams in the conference. So them and UMKC were able to help each other's RPI ratings and improve. Denver left, so that doesn't help. So they had to focus on that. But
Yeah.
in that game against SIU, Raphael Kieseman, if I and I make fun of how I pronounce names all the time. He had 2 goals. I think he'll be he came back from injury because I think he was missed a lot of last year, if not all of it. So he's one of the ones that they can probably look to put in some goals.
Yeah. How was the goalkeeping situation? Were there any shots that SAU got off, or was it pretty much the Roos attacking for the entire game?
Oh, that's a really good question. SIUE had, I think, 8 total shots, maybe 1 on goal. I mean, it
Okay.
was not a lot, but he looked pretty solid, and they looked pretty good in possession and, the whole build out of the back and transitioning into a quick attack. So it was an entertaining team to watch. So if anybody hasn't gotten out there, which probably nobody has that's listening to this right now. Oh, the first game was pretty well attended because it was a lot of alumni and stuff like that. But get out there and watch them.
I have heard, as I've moved to the city and been talking to people in the soccer community, a lot of people have told me that this team is about as high of quality as any soccer you're going to get to see in this city. Um, so, like I said, as we go through the season, I don't want to put too much into a result like that. 5-0. It looks really good on the stat sheet, but you know, what does that mean when we go into a game against SMU or
Right.
against that San Diego game? I cannot overstate this enough. I'm so excited to see a team of that caliber come to town, and even if it does result in a loss or a tie, like those games, just playing in those games, being in those games is such a big opportunity for a team like this.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like for me, when I watch a game, because a lot of times I'm shooting the game at the same time, and it's hard to always like trigger on every moment of the game. But
Hmm.
I try to come out of with impressions, if that makes sense. And UMKC men's team, when you walk away from watching them, you go, okay, they're well coached, they know what they're doing, they play well together, they possess well, they attack well. So you can often see on a team that's not well coached, isn't really in sync. They'll make a good pass to somebody, but then that player, if they get held up for a second, they don't know what to do with it. Right? They don't have an outlet. They don't have those triangles. They don't have those passing patterns, and it doesn't work. The Roos do. They're a really well coached team. They're a very good team. Now they will go up against really tough teams and not look as good because really tough teams play each other hard. But
Hmm.
it will. They are a well coached team.
Yeah, that stuff, making sure that we're in the flow state. It's so important. I talk to coaches all the time, and they're always reiterating that point of making sure that we have those decisions covered so that when the players are on the field, they're able to just focus on doing their thing, being their own player, not just being a robot who's like, okay,
Right.
trap the ball, turn, make this pass, turn upfield. Like making sure that they have the ability to say, okay, I know the framework that we're playing within, and I get to be my own creative self, so that's where we see those exceptional players take their game to that next level and be the difference makers. So, in a game like 5-0, like, with a result like that, it's a little tougher to make any reasonable judgments about, what can we expect from these guys. And, we've got a little bit of a break now. Tomorrow they play UNLV, so that'll be a fun one. But that September schedule is gonna be difficult. So, making sure, number 1, that they're healthy for that time, because if you go into that time span with, 2, 3 players, you're playing with an arm behind your back, and that's just never good in those situations. You wanna make sure that you're healthy, that you're ready and prepared, so that you can give those opponents the best game that you possibly can.
So, like you mentioned, that September schedule, September 4th, number 15 in their country, SMU, Drake at Drake. They're usually a good team. Michigan State, I'm not sure how good they are. September 11th, Missouri State. They played them 2 years ago in the NCAA tournament at Springfield and beat them there. But they're usually a very good team. and then like you said, number 18 San Diego on the 20th, and then after that Oral Roberts. So that September schedule is filled with a lot of really good non-conference teams.
Any
So
players that I should be aware of as I'm going through? I know you were talking about Franku, who was unable to play in the
yeah,
first couple games, but
yeah, he's been hurt. It's a really good question. I should have had that in my mind a little bit in advance of that, but let me pull this back up here because otherwise let's see. They have a lot of really good players. The Fernandez, who's like their six, and he's Miguel Fernandez. They call him Miggy, and he was just so solid. I mean, I don't want to say solid as in like, oh, they're boring, but he was dominating that midfield. Raphael Kissman, who scored the couple goals, and I know there's a lot of other good players on there, but I want to see them play a little bit more before I totally wax poetic about them.
mhm,
Mackay Francis, who, if I remember correctly, was in Sporting Academy. He was came on as a substitute. So a lot of good players.
yeah. I always say about a 6, it's like good Wi-Fi. You don't have to think about it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for people who don't watch a lot of, or don't understand a lot of soccer, they like, oh, that guy's kind of boring. He doesn't do a lot, right? A really good six doesn't always have to do a lot. They just cut out stuff. If they're positioned well, they can control a game just by being in the right spots. So,
Exactly.
all right, let's take a quick break and we'll be back and we'll switch to more women's soccer after this.
If weight loss has felt like a losing battle, this summer can be different. Skip the guesswork and try Weight Loss by Hims. Access an affordable range of FDA-approved GLP-1 medications, including the Wegovy pill and the Wegovy pen, plus the support to actually stick with it. With Wegovy at Hims, lose up to 20% of your body weight when combined with diet and exercise. It helps you regulate your appetite, eat less, and keep weight off. Plus, Wegovy is the first ever GLP-1 pill for weight loss, so there are no needles needed. Through Hims, everything happens online. You'll connect with a licensed provider who will determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is delivered right to your door. No insurance necessary. Ready to reach your goals? Visit hims.com/FFSN to get a personalized, affordable plan that gets you. That's HIMS.com/FFSN. hims.com/FFSN. Weight Loss by Hims is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is the registered trademark of Novo Nordisk AS. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information, and restrictions, visit hims.com.
And we're back. That was a really long break. Hopefully you're fully refreshed. UMKC women are not doing as well. They let's see. They just lost to UC Riverside. You and I were both at that game. They tied at Rockhurst, or tied it versus Rockhurst. They're not very far apart, so it's hard to say like one's at the other. They're literally a block and a half or 2 blocks away.
Mhm.
But Rockhurst, they should, because of division level, they should be a better team than Rockhurst, but that was a draw. They lost at Iowa State, and in exhibitions they won one and lost one. So they're not as good a team as the men's side, but there's still some good players. There's still some entertainment there. What did you see from, I guess, your first time watching the Roos?
Well, it started out pretty well. I thought that they were, attacking well. They dominated possession. They were maintaining, the ball in dangerous areas as well, getting the ball into the box on crosses, even if those crosses weren't necessarily directed like to an individual. They were getting the ball into those dangerous areas, which is so important. But they went ahead early, so they got a penalty kick off of a nice little build-up play through the outside, give and go into the box, and then player got taken down, score the penalty kick, go up 1-0. They actually got a second penalty kick, which was taken away by VAR. But I mean, if you're looking at a 2-0 lead, that's a very different
Right.
game potentially. But as it would happen, it did not go their way. And not too long after that, right before halftime, UC Riverside got their equalizer on a long set piece, threw a ball into the box, brought it down, controlled, and then one-on-one with the goalkeeper from about 6 feet away is more likely to result in a goal than not. So going into the halftime, those sorts of moments, I used to have coaches who would tell me that conceding a goal in the first 5 minutes or the last 5 minutes of the game, they really are momentum killers. And as you're going through and trying to build that team chemistry, build that momentum for not just the game but the season as a whole, those moments do make a really big difference. To see someone get through you guys right at the very end, that it's a tough moment. But from there it just kind of went downhill. There was a red card on what I thought to be a relatively inconsequential foul near midfield. It wound up being second yellow card for the defender, and then having her sent off, playing down a man for the rest of the game. Just was never looking like it was going to be a positive result. And then penalty kick for Riverside pretty soon after getting that red card, and then a 3-1 or a goal to make it 3-1 not long after that as well, just sealed the result. But yeah, there were positives. I think individually there were a couple players that really impressed me. Kayla Frazier came on. I thought she had a pretty good impact. There were a couple passages of play, got a couple shots off. So I was impressed with her, even in the brief moments when they were able to maintain those possessions. Lydia Safley impressed me as well on the ball. She was able to create space, turn her defenders, and put the team in dangerous positions. But man, getting a red card like that, it really flipped the game on its head. You went from potentially even going into halftime 1-0 up, and then not long after, around the 60-70 minute mark, now you're down a man. Now you're facing the last 30 minutes of the game, and you've got to defend for your life, but also potentially hope about springing forward. And they just didn't really have any options going forward. They were really playing with an isolated striker up top, and especially when you go down a man, that just is a death sentence for these teams who are trying to do everything all at once without all of their available pieces.
Yeah, the UMKC defender, they got their first yellow at 62:53. They got their second yellow at 66:21. So less than 4 minutes later,
Yeah,
you make one mistake and then the second one, and that did seal the Ruse fate right there. Because even being tied 1-1 at the half, it's okay, they're a better team. They probably can come back and win this, or at least keep it tied. But once that happened, it was not very likely.
no, and you could just tell, being in there, the momentum had swung. They were playing okay. I thought that there wasn't really any glaring issues with how they played, and I don't want to completely discredit, once you go down a man, conceding 2 goals is I don't want to say it's expected, but it's not a complete surprise.
Yeah,
At
not
that
unusual.
point, it was 1-1. They were holding their own. They were doing okay. There was that one moment of a lapse of judgment in the box on a set piece where, it's a lot of chaos. These things happen. But I think my biggest complaint would be just not enough dangerous opportunities that they were creating. Anytime that they did get the ball up into dangerous areas, out on the wings, out towards the box, they were throwing the ball in, and it didn't look like they had a direct outlet that they were okay, we're trying to hit this person. There was a little bit too much of a disconnect. Even on the penalty that they were awarded, it didn't feel like it was a tremendous chance itself. It was a good passage of play, some nice runs into the box, but it was at the byline. It was way out towards the side of the box as well. It didn't look like it was really going to result in a goal. And so I would like to see, they've got some tough opponents as well. We were just saying that about the men's team, but the women's team also has some really tough opponents coming up. But if they can focus on trying to get that ball into those dangerous areas, add more numbers going forward so that it's not just like, one or two players hoping that they can get by six defenders. Like, these teams are packing the box against them, and they need some additional help, whether it's the wingers or the wing backs coming forward. There were a couple other players that I was impressed with. Their left back was quite good on the ball. There were a couple instances where she got passed a little too easily in the defensive side, but um, I I don't know. I don't want to make any rash judgments. I feel like she could be a very good midfielder. Um, on her day. She was passing the ball well, checking shoulder, making sure that she had her runners and making sure that she had space when she was playing forward. So that, like I said, these are the little things that do make a difference, especially at this point of the season. Like, to try to find, okay, where are our players more comfortable? Where do they fit in? Where do we get the best out of these guys? And how can we put them in the right position to be successful going forward so that when we do play another opponent, that we have the opportunity to get a result against. 1-1 at the half, you got 45 minutes to play for everything. Now you can go for it and really make a good, get a good result.
Yeah.
I think there were good signs, but just on the day, it just wasn't good enough.
And that's kind of felt like when I watched the UMKC women over the last couple, 3 years, that kind of feels like every year is they've looked good. One year they were really good in their non-conference schedule and playing really good teams and getting like draws at ranked teams and wins over some like lower ranked teams. And then they hit the conference schedule and fell apart. And that was probably due to some injuries and a lot of other factors. But they seem to be a little bit of a mystery at times. Like, they can be a really good team or they can be a really bad team. Now, that's probably all teams, right? But that just seems to be a little bit of their identity at this moment. I'm not sure what you're going to get on every day.
Mm-hmm.
They,
And if we
like,
can look forward, this might be a good opportunity to pivot to
right.
Kansas in just a second. But for the rest of, I think it's just the next week from Thursday to Thursday, they play at Creighton on the 27th, and then the following week at Kansas. And,
Yeah.
Creighton's a pretty good team. Traveling up to Omaha, it's not the worst away trip, right? But man, that's going to be a tough couple results, especially after, like I said, you put in a good first half performance. Those are some positives that they're going to take into that dressing room, and then to not get the result that you wanted, have a lot of stuff go against you in that second half. It can feel at times like you got to start all over again, but making sure that they're on the right track, making sure that they know, okay, what did we do well in this game? What can we focus on for this next trip to Creighton? Make sure that even if it does, result in a loss, what are the positives that we can focus on? Can we focus on being better in specific areas of the game? Maybe targeting specific players on Creighton that we can say, okay, we know that these are going to be the dangerous players. Let's keep that threat down, try to maintain, our impact on the game, and then going forward, use what we've learned in those big games against those really difficult opponents to make yourselves more dangerous against the teams that are more on their level.
Yeah, like you said, Creighton's not a bad team, not a terrible road trip, but on August 27th, and then KU on September 3rd. That should be a interesting game. Yeah, KU probably wins it. We'll transition into KU here in a second, but I do hope to be at that game. So,
Mhm. It's at Rock Chalk Park.
yes. It's a nice stadium. They built that a few years ago. Uh, Sporting 2 played there for a while when they were trying to, get some youth into watching Sporting Kansas City.
Mhm.
It is a nice stadium out there. It's on the far side of Lawrence, so it's like even that much more of a drive for those of us in Kansas City. I guess we can now transition to KU since we've
Sweet.
just been talking about them. So a- again, all positive. They came into preseason ranked, I want to say 15th. Depends on which poll. There's multiple polls out there, but one of them they were 12th. One of them they were 15th, and they have went to the tournament last year. They did well. I think I think they made it to the third round, if I remember correctly. I didn't have that pulled up, but they have been on a long road trip right now,
Mm-hmm.
and they went to Ohio State, where they lost, and then they just beat Kent State on Sunday. Prior to that, they beat Utah State 2-0, Missouri State 7-0. And I talked to Coach Lee a couple days ago, and again, I like him as a coach, and he says a lot of things that I think are very interesting, and I like the way they're trying to play. They do kind of play not kind of play. They play a high press. They like to wear people down. He will play his entire bench, and like I think he said, like in one game he had 20 some odd players that all showed up in that game.
Wow.
He will sub a lot because they're pressing a lot. So like other teams might have 18 and he had 25 or something like that were that actually participated in the game. They have some very good players, some returning that are very good. They also have one thing I did mention about UMKC is the women's team had like 10 new players. So they are still probably trying to integrate a lot of them. And I think 8 or 9 of them were true freshmen. 1 or 2 of them were transfers from a junior college. KU also has a lot of new players. I think that may just be the new world with the transfer portals, that colleges are going to have a lot of turnover more than they ever did before. So they're still trying to figure that out. But KU is a very good team. I mean, have you got to see any of those games or any of those highlights yet?
I saw a couple of the highlights at Kent from last night, and I mean, you can just tell once you get some of those results in, like this is a team that is a class above some of the opponents that they've had. That Ohio State game, I do want to go back and watch a little bit more of the highlights to, be familiar with how are they playing, how do they set up against another one of these really elite teams in the country, especially on the road. It's such a difficult situation to travel and like this early in the season try to get a result like that. So I don't want to put too much stock into a loss like that. But I do think that it will set them up for, better results as we go into the season. That we were talking off camera about the Big 12 and how difficult it is, how competitive that schedule is going to be. So making sure that they are, hitting their form once they get into that part of the season, it's going to be really important.
Yeah, and that loss at Ohio State, Ohio State's 19th ranked. KU is technically ranked higher, but it's on the road. And Coach Lee had said it was essentially their worst day of this season so far. Like, they've had great practices, they've had great exhibition games, they've had great non-conference games, and then that day just was not good. Like everything did not go well. Everybody had their probably worst performance, or well, I won't say everybody, but a lot of them had their worst performance of the entire season so far, all at the same time. They also are facing a problem with center backs. Like when coming into this, they should have 6 center backs or whatever it is on the roster, and they were down to basically starting 2 freshmen.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I think the third one was a transfer. So they were not a lot of experience at the center back spot.
Uh-huh.
That's not necessarily why they lost that game, right? But that did not help, of course, a little bit. But they have some good players, and he thought about moving some of those players into the center back spot, to have some experience. But then you're taking away a strength of another spot. So I understand that problem. It's going to help them in the long run. These players will be more experienced, but it doesn't help them right now. And they are starting to get some of those other more experienced defenders back, but you can't rush them in even at that level.
Do you know if they were having that problem? Like, have they had that all season long, or was that just for the one game?
No, it was pretty much this whole season.
Wow.
I don't know if they had. I don't know if it was that in the exhibition games they had, but I know it was. Pretty sure it was actually in the exhibition games. Now that they say that, they've had that a lot of the So, and they're still getting results.
That is really good.
They are a really good team, and they have, like I said, they have some really good players. Caroline Caston. I keep wanting to say Caster because I knew a Caroline Caster. Caroline Caston is on the Mac Herman Trophy watch list. Which, by the way, forgot to mention on UMKC men, one of their players is on the Mac Herman, preseason watch list. So Jeremy Franku, it happens to be the one that's hurt that they haven't had to play. But back to KU, that's a really good player. They have a lot of other very good experienced players. I think they can. I don't know how they'll do totally. Like, I don't know what their final will be, but I would not be surprised to see them back in the tournament and doing some damage.
Yeah, we'll see. Gotta make sure that we're getting through the next couple games. You said you're going to be at that Missouri or UMKC game potentially.
It's on my plan. I have to see what all of what else is going on. I usually look at the week ahead. So I mean, I kind of say, 2 weeks from now, I want to be doing this. But usually, like every week, I'm like, okay, what can I make? What can I do? Which press conference? Which games? I can't plan too far out because things are always changing. It feels like, but that is on my schedule as I want to try to make it if at all possible.
Yeah. I'm gonna make it out there at some point. I don't know which game yet, but I'll find one that I'm like, that looks like a really, really tasty matchup on the schedule, especially as we go through. And I should probably disclose to the listeners one of the key assets that I've been using, that I've been forcing down Thad's throat, is MasseyRatings.com, which is a great statistical analysis website that I use for a lot of my reactions. Look at these opponents that they have. What are the expected results? What are their rankings based on their output offensively, defensively? It gives every team kind of a rating in addition to the rankings that we have across the country with the inside the college pyramid. This gives you all the way down, like, the system, so you can see where UMKC sits and where KU sits. And I'll say right now, it's a pretty big gulf between the two teams in terms of their national ranking. So yeah, when we're looking at those sorts of games, I'm not as excited to potentially see a more lopsided result like that. But I mean, some of those in conference games, those ones I'm a little bit more excited for. BYU, the middle of October. Most of those games are going to be in like late September, early October. So that's probably when I'm going to be making my trip out there. But in the meantime, I'll be keeping up, trying to watch as many of the games as possible and make sure that we're on top of how they're doing, how they're setting up, so that we can be as accurate as possible.
Yeah. And nothing else, give all these teams a little attention. That's part of why I want to do some of this too, is they don't necessarily get a whole lot of attention from the traditional media. So I would like to make sure that they're getting, at least people are like, oh yeah, hey, this is a good team. I should go watch them. I should be paying attention to them.
Yeah.
Go. If you're living in the heart of Kansas City, UMKC is very easy to get to. Go watch them. If you're living on the west side of Kansas City, KU is not that far. Go watch them. K-State's a little farther out. I also, as we go along, as we kind of build doing this program, we'll see how much we can cover and how much we can talk about. But I would like to also get a little more time and experience and some eyes on K-State. They're actually at the top of the Big 12 right now, all non-conference games. And I don't have any idea how good they will actually be, because traditionally they have not been very good since they started a program a few years ago. I would like to cover them a little bit more. Creighton, some of the not less, but lower division college teams, not Division I teams in the Kansas City area. William Jewell, Avila, Benedictine. I'm sure I'm missing somebody, so people can comment and let me know who I missed.
Absolutely. Please, if you're listening, and you want us to cover a specific team, put it in the comments. Reach out to us. We would be more than happy to, watch more soccer. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing what we love.
Yeah, I watch an inordinate amount of soccer. People are, a lot of people around are like, oh, did you see the Manchester City game? No, I didn't. I was watching a USL 2 game. or a college game. So yeah,
Exactly. Who cares? Who even watches the Premier League? Really? I mean, what are we
look,
doing
look,
when we can
I
watch UMKC and USL2 and NPSL? It's
yes,
right underneath our nose.
we can see it in person. We can have local connections to it. No doubt, Premier League is obviously the best league in the world, but a lot of those players get there because they were on lower level teams. They work their way up. Yes, there's obviously 17-year-old phenoms that play on these teams, but they all came from some lower level academy or something else at some point. So that's
Everyone's
why
been talking. Yeah, everyone's been talking about is Yan Diomande, who's
yeah,
just got that big money signing. He's at Real Madrid now. Like he's playing UPSL in Florida like 3
right.
years ago. That stuff's insane.
It's not that you're going to see that every time or every team, but you will see some amazingly good players.
Mm-hmm.
And even if for me, I always I enjoy a good game. If it's at a really high level or at, U10 girls soccer that my daughter played at one point, they were good games. They were entertaining, competitive, well coached. That's why I always I use a phrase, well coached. That doesn't mean that everything works perfectly, but you can see that the players know what to do and things like that. You can see that even at, U10 girls or boys or whatever. You can see that at college. You can see that at UPSL, NPSL, USL2, et cetera, et cetera. So I
No,
enjoy
I
it.
totally agree. I totally agree. And I think that soccer is kind of a unique sport in that like you don't have to watch the best players in the world to enjoy watching soccer.
Yeah,
And you can watch, lower level soccer, even down to youth games. Like there really are talented players everywhere. And if you go and watch and have a keen eye, you can find these diamonds in the rough and say, "Hey, I got to see this guy." And now you were just talking before about a guy who's on UMKC and you got to watch him play for Sporting's Academy. Like that
yeah,
sort of structure and seeing that progression, that is so rewarding in and of itself. And you get to see soccer for probably less than you would pay to go see a Manchester City game, right?
by far. Yeah. Some of them won't even charge you to walk in the door.
We love
But
it.
um, so as we continue to do this across the KC Pyramid podcast, we'll have to see which teams we want to or what levels we want to pull into it. Like, do we want to pull in, MLS Next Pro as an example, or uh, when the NWSL maybe finally gets a second league started,
Mhm.
like the KC Current 2 played in WPSL and won that this year. So we'll have to see as much of that as we can talk about. Because
Yeah, the
again, we do
summers
have a limited bandwidth. But
we do, but I mean, at the same time, like we're the ones who are, out here watching these games. I love
yep,
watching. I have a particular affinity for lower league soccer. Like MLS and NWSL are great, but like I love being able to like watch a game and be one of 100 fans that are in the crowd, mostly parents, mostly friends. Like that's just how some of this is played, and I really enjoy that raw feeling that you get being at a game that is just the soccer,
right.
not any of the bells and whistles. You just go out there and you are there to watch a good game of soccer. There's nothing
Yeah.
better.
And when you do go to these games, you end up realizing just how small of a community it is. As I was talking to somebody the other day, the soccer community in Kansas City is large, but small at the same time. I rarely go to a game that I don't run into a coach I know, a player I know, a, a former teammate of mine or my daughter's or one of their coaches, or, you almost always run into somebody. Last night, walking out of the UMKC game, we were next to a couple of Riverside parents who were telling us about the coach. You want to relay that?
Oh yeah, that was another little tidbit about Riverside. Riverside got the result even after their head coach had been red carded at the last game,
Yeah.
and so they didn't even have their head coach for the game.
He was up in the press box watching it from
Yeah,
what we were told later.
That's crazy.
And we run into LeBaron Holloman and Junior Kazim from the Comets, and I've seen other coaches from around the area that was there. So yeah, you never know who you're going to run into, or what little interesting stories you'll get because you're not so isolated in the crowd of thousands. Sometimes you're more isolated when you're in a crowd like that than when you're in a smaller group.
Completely.
All right, man. Anything we should have covered that we didn't, or any extra thoughts, comments?
I think that's up for the viewers to decide. Like I said, if they can think of anything that they want us to cover, that's what this show is for. Please let us know. Reach out. We'd be happy to make you guys happy.
Yeah. Or if you have a better name.
Oh, yeah. I like the name though. I like KC Pyramid. It works. It's or the KC Soccer. What was the name you went with?
Across the KC Pyramid.
Across the KC. Yeah, no, I love that. I think it does a really good job of making sure that we're talking about the soccer that's not just at the top, but also, all the way down in all places, whatever it may be. We all funnel into the same place and we're all part of this one system. I think it works. I really like it.
All right. Well, unless somebody comes up with a way better one, we're sticking with that. All right, man. I appreciate the time, Joseph, and we are out.